Hello, crafty friends. This is Anya General with Ink, Paper, Scissors. I'm so happy you are here. Today, I'll be working on some Halloween cards, and before we get into making the cards themselves, I wanted to share with you how I create some of my backgrounds. The techniques I'll be showing you today are perfect for creating dark, dramatic Halloween-style backgrounds, but don't feel like you can only use these color combinations or techniques for Halloween cards. You can easily change up the colors to create backgrounds for any theme, season, or occasion. I'll be sharing a few different ways to create these backgrounds, and as you'll see, they don't have to be complicated. Sometimes all you need is a little pigment, some water, and a willingness to get a little messy. Before we get started, I've linked all of the products I'm using in today's video below and in my visual supply list. And as always, you can also visit my blog for up-close photos of the finished cards and more details about today's projects. So, let's get started. For today's project, I'll be using the Ken Oliver Color Burst powders. I love working with these because they are highly concentrated with pigment, so a very small amount can create a lot of color. They're perfect for creating quick and vibrant backgrounds, and the way the pigments react when you add water can give you some really beautiful and unexpected results. For my Halloween backgrounds, I'm pulling out several of the darker blue color bursts, along with a dark purple and a little bit of pink to add some variety to the color palette. I'll also be using the Moon Masks stencils by Tim Holtz for my project today, along with some pixie spray to help hold the masks in place. You'll also want a paintbrush, a jar of water, a spray bottle filled with water and perfect pearls, and a regular spray bottle with clean water. Mine has turned yellow, and honestly, I'm not quite sure why, but I promise it just has clean water in it. And finally, I'm using my large Strathmore Bristol Smooth paper pad in the 11 by 14 inch size. One thing I definitely recommend before you get started is to make sure you're working in an area that is easy to clean, because this technique can get messy very quickly. You'll also want to have some space nearby where you can lay your finished panels aside to dry. A kitchen counter would actually be a great place for something like this. And if you have an apron, this might be a good time to put it on, because those little color burst powders can have a mind of their own. I'm starting by pulling a sheet out of my Strathmore Bristol Smooth paper pad. I don't work directly in the pad because I don't want the rest of my paper getting wet or accidentally covered with pigment. Now I'm going to start sprinkling a very light amount of each color burst powder onto the paper. And when I say light, I really mean it. You don't need very much at all. These powders are extremely concentrated, and it's always easier to add more color if you need it than it is to take color away once you've added too much. I'm sprinkling on a couple of different shades of blue, followed by some dark purple and just a very small amount of pink. I'm keeping the purple and pink especially light because I want the blues to remain the dominant colors in this background. Once I'm happy with the amount of powder, I start spraying everything with water. And this is where the magic really starts to happen. You can immediately see the color burst powders reacting with the water and beginning to spread across the paper. I'm using quite a bit of water here because I want the pigments to move and blend into each other. The more water you add, the more movement you'll get from those colors, so you can really experiment with this depending on the look you're trying to achieve. I'm also using my paintbrush to move some of the color around and encourage the different shades to mingle together. You don't have to overwork it. Part of what makes these backgrounds so interesting is allowing the pigments and water to do their own thing. Once I'm happy with the color, I add a few sprays of my Perfect Pearls mixture over the top. This gives the background a little bit of shimmer and adds another layer of interest. Now, because there is still plenty of pigment and water sitting on the surface of this first sheet, I'm bringing in a second piece of Bristol smooth paper and laying it directly on top. This is a great way to get even more out of your color burst powders. Instead of letting all of that extra pigment go to waste, the second sheet picks up the remaining color and creates another completely unique background. When I lift the second sheet back up, I set it aside to dry along with the first one. At this point, you could simply leave your backgrounds alone and allow them to air dry. But I want to get to making my cards, so I'm bringing in my heat gun to speed things up a little bit. I'm not trying to completely dry these panels at this point. I just want to remove some of the excess moisture so they can continue drying while I work on creating the rest of my backgrounds. I've sped this portion up for you, but you can definitely see that the heat gun makes a big difference. And that's our first background technique. With just a tiny amount of pigment, some water, and a little bit of shimmer, we've created two completely different backgrounds, and we're just getting started. For my next background, I'm bringing in the Tim Holtz moon masks. I pick out several different sizes because I want to create multiple backgrounds, each with a moon in a slightly different size and position. To apply the pixie spray, I'm bringing in a box to help contain some of the overspray. I place my moon masks inside the box, and before spraying, I give my pixie spray bottle a really good shake to make sure everything is well mixed. Then I give the masks just 2 or 3 light sprays. You don't need a lot here, you just want enough adhesive on the back to help the masks stay in place while you're adding all of that water and pigment. After spraying them, I take the masks out of the box and give the adhesive a few moments to dry. You don't want to place them onto your paper immediately because the adhesive needs a little time to become tacky. Once it reaches that sticky stage, it's ready to use. Now I'm going to place my moon masks onto my sheet of Bristol smooth paper. I'm spacing them about 4 inches apart, and there is a reason for that. I know that later I'll be cutting this sheet into horizontal strips, so I want to make sure I have a moon positioned on each strip. Once I'm happy with the placement, it's time to repeat the same basic process we used for our first backgrounds. I'm sprinkling several shades of blue onto the paper, along with some purple and just a little bit of pink. Again, remember that these color burst powders are highly concentrated, so you really don't need much. Then I start spraying the paper with water and let those pigments react and move across the surface. This is one of my favorite things about this technique. You can never completely predict exactly how the pigments are going to move and blend together, so every background ends up looking a little bit different. I'm adding water until I'm happy with the way the colors have spread and combined. Now I'm bringing in my heat gun to help dry the background, but there is one important thing to keep in mind here. You want to be very careful not to aim your heat gun directly at the moon masks. These masks can melt if they get too much direct heat, and you definitely don't want them melting onto your beautiful background. So as I'm drying the panel, I'm focusing the heat on the areas of the paper where there aren't any masks and being careful to avoid hitting the masks directly. Once the background is dry enough, I can carefully remove the moon masks. And don't worry if your moons aren't absolutely perfect. If a little bit of color has made its way underneath the mask, that can actually add to the look. Some of those imperfections can give your moon an eerie, spooky appearance, which is perfect for a Halloween card. And if there's an area that you don't love, remember that we're going to be turning these backgrounds into cards, so some of those little imperfections may end up being covered by your other design elements anyway. The important thing is not to get too caught up in trying to make every background perfect. These types of watercolor and pigment backgrounds are supposed to be a little unpredictable, and that's part of what makes each one unique. Now that all of our backgrounds are finished, we just have a little bit of cleanup to do, and then we'll be ready to start turning these colorful panels into Halloween cards. Now that our backgrounds are finished, it's time to turn them into some Halloween cards. For these cards, all of the design elements I'm using are from the Spellbinders August clubs. I've linked all of the clubs and products I used below in the video description and in my visual supply list. To keep the card making process moving along, I went ahead and die cut and assembled all of my design elements off camera. So now we can just have some fun putting these cards together. I'll let you enjoy the rest of the card assembly with a little music, and then I'll be back at the end to share the finished cards with you. Now it's your turn. I'd love to know what you think of these background techniques. Do you enjoy creating your own backgrounds, or is this something you would like to try? And of course, let me know which one of these Halloween cards was your favorite. I always love hearing which design stands out to you the most. Also, if you enjoyed seeing how I created these backgrounds, let me know in the comments. I would love to know if you'd like to see more background techniques in future videos. And remember, you can use these same techniques with any color combination for completely different looks. I've linked all of the products I used in today's video below, along with my visual supply list. And if you'd like to see more photos of the finished cards and get a closer look at all of the details, make sure to visit my blog as well. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would love to have you join our crafty community. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my upcoming card making videos, techniques, and creative ideas. Thank you so much for spending some crafty time with me today. I hope these backgrounds have inspired you to pull out your inks, powders, or whatever coloring medium you have in your stash and have some fun creating your own. Until next time, happy crafting!